Chill Girl Chrissy here, Alderman in Ward 6. Welcome to the Chill and Heal Show. We're here to fuel your mind, body, and soul with goodness. Open up, share, be real, be raw, overcome, let go, and simply live a joyous, chill life.
That's quite an opening.
And super excited, my good friend Rich Girard. He has been in the, oh my gosh.
Been around too long.
Been around the block several times, decades as Girard at Large. Sometimes I'm honored to host your show every once in a blue moon. I know I don't deliver things the way you do.
Oh, well, you know,
But
nobody needs
it is
to.
about showing up, right?
Yeah.
And supporting each other, and we share all a little bit differently. Rich has been a great friend of mine and really has helped me understand more. And it's complicated what goes on because he's a financial advisor, and you were on the school board, and you worked in the mayor's office.
And I was an alderman.
And you were an alderman.
And I was a charter commissioner.
And you were what?
Charter commissioner.
A charter commissioner.
Yeah.
All right. And he's a grandfather.
Yes. Pepe.
And a father, and a husband, and a good friend to many. Oh, welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. That's quite the introduction. It's a lot to live up to.
Oh, well, you're doing it. And you know what? You show up and you keep showing up. And when I heard you on your show, because I tune in on Thursdays, if I don't get to watch him on Thursday nights, I will circle back around and watch him. He was possibly going to let it go, his show.
Yes.
And I was like, what? You can't. There's so much we all learn from. And you show up and you speak up. And as an alderman, for the past few years, you would come and share information. And a lot of times people wouldn't listen. Or, I don't know, for me, facts matter. And diving into, but there's lots of shenanigans that
Oh, yes.
in the wonderful world of politics.
There are many mice and not enough cats.
Oh, there you go.
The cats are being overrun.
So, thank you for coming on. I appreciate
Thank you for having
this. It's nice. I was like circling back because you were on my show a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
It's been a long time when we were actually on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I'll have to share that one as well.
Well,
So-
happy to be back.
I'm glad. So we're here to knowledge up, diving into, your expertise, which is budgets and
Yeah, I'm one of those annoying
school
people who's
district.
good with numbers.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse.
It's a blessing and a curse. So if you need any financial advising, you can call Rich Girard.
Yeah, I actually seem to have a knack for investing, so
Yeah.
it's a good thing in my line of business.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, and we have many friends that are Lisa Freeman. Yep.
Yep.
So, and she was on school board with you.
Yes, she was.
And Kelly Thomas.
Yep, was on with Kelly.
Okay. So I guess this is the big thing is you are not just a man of words. You are of action. So you were on the school board and an alderman and in the mayor's office, and so you see a broad spectrum of what goes on in Manchester.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have a number of different perches. So,
And it's helped you with your.
well, yeah. I don't know, has it?
I think so. You.
I got into this business. I was 6'3", 225, with a full head of hair. So, and I know from the front it looks like I still have hair, but if I do one of these,
Your hair looks
yeah,
great.
it's, you know.
Your hair looks great.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
What's left of it anyway.
So we are diving into the budgets and schools. And for me, I was a student, and my kids went to Manchester School District.
Yep.
And I know last year we tried to turn the district into a department so there'd be more transparency and accountability, and that did not happen.
Right.
Which is a drag because here we are, lack of transparency, lack of accountability, enrollment is down,
Yes.
budget,
And continues to fall.
and it still increases.
Of course.
which is, for me, I don't understand. When there's, as a business owner, as a mom, as, hey, times are tough. We start cutting back.
Yeah.
Well, I say government has to cut back.
Well, it does, but government just also has to be smart. So let's take a look at the
Yes.
decrease in enrollment, right? So to some degree, the schools are right. If you have, if you have 150 fewer kids over the size of the whole district, right? That doesn't really change your operating costs,
Right.
because it's not like you're eliminating
A building.
schools or a building or whatnot. However, back when I ran for mayor in 2001, Manchester had 17,200 kids. Today it's got 11,700 kids. And we've closed exactly, two buildings now, Hallsville. And Hallsville got closed primarily because it only had 200 kids and there was nothing going on that led anybody to conclude that the enrollment numbers were going to tick up. And Wilson, because they have this grand delusion about building a supersized elementary school that combines Wilson with Beach, and they had these wildly out of control claims about how much it would cost to make Wilson great again. But what everybody overlooks in this discussion about buildings is that in 2021, the school board did both a facilities study and a demographic study. And the demographic study is kind of key, because the demographic study showed that for at least the next decade, enrollments were going to continue to drop across the district. And if you take a look at the projections in the demographic study and what's happened in reality, the demographic study was only wrong in that more kids have left, or population has dropped faster than they predicted. So it's a really good question as to why are we putting, $250 million worth of additions onto our 4 middle schools when all of them had excess seats and
Yep.
all of them have decreasing enrollment. In the newspaper, right, they were bragging at the groundbreaking for Southside, which is a school I know pretty well. For those of you in the audience, Mr. Girard at Southside was my father. And he was principal of that school when it had 1,100 kids. And now they're bragging about how their addition is going to allow them to have 1,100 kids, which interestingly it already had.
Yeah.
But they reported rather accurately that the enrollment at Southside right now is around 600 kids.
What?
So why am I putting in a great big addition onto Southside
When the enrollment
when
is down.
I've already got half as many kids as, so this is the type of stupid thing. But back to the 2021 study.
Yeah.
The 2021 study identified all of the shortcomings, the deferred maintenance, the needs for upgrades, and all of that fun stuff in every single building in the school district. And including Hallsville, which was about $5 million to fix, if I remember correctly. It was either 3.5 or 5.3. One of the two, close enough for government work,
Yeah.
right? But including Hallsville, it would have cost $92 million to bring all of the schools that we have in the city up to an acceptable educational standard, including Wilson, including Beach, including Hallsville, which was closed. So now if you back out the $5 million from Hallsville, you're at $87 million.
Yeah.
Do you know how much money the school district got from the federal government in COVID funds over 3 years?
Was it 100 million?
It was $88 million.
88 million.
So for $88 million in
We could have
cash,
fixed.
we could have gone and upgraded, fixed, and it's not just a matter of fixing the roof or the bathroom or whatnot. There were technology upgrades, there were usage upgrades, all kinds of upgrades. And instead, the school board and Dr. Goldhart, who was the superintendent at the time, Dr. Goldhart actually made recommendations to the school board, which accepted that study. And then there was a bit of a brouhaha over some of Goldhart's recommendations. But somewhere after accepting the study, it became unacceptable. And they went out and they did another facilities study.
Oh, because they didn't like that one.
Because apparently they didn't like that one. It didn't do enough apparently to turn our aging buildings. My house was built in 1891. By the logic of the school board, because the way we live has changed, right? You know, my living room is built around a fireplace because my house was built before television.
Yeah.
So I found a way to adapt. I had a custom piece of furniture made by a place called Cedar and Oak, which is no longer in Manchester. They moved to Berlin. I had a custom piece of furniture made so that I could put my TV between the fireplace and the wall. Well, this, in school terms, would be an abomination. What we really should do is we should demolish my house and build it for what century are we in now? The 21st century?
Yeah.
The 21st century living, where I can more easily have, you know, Wi-Fi and the kinds of, you know, modern spaces that weren't anticipated by people who were living in the Victorian era of 1891. But this whole idea to our left here is the mill yard. Imagine someone telling Dean Kamen, who's in a little bit of hot water right now, and rightfully so, but imagine somebody telling John Madden, or somebody telling Ralph Sador, or someone telling any of the many people, someone telling the McDonough brothers who took the old Myrna shoe building, someone tell Arthur Sullivan, you know, the building is just too old for modern uses. But this is the mentality of the schools. And so what they did is they not only hired you know, somebody to do a facility study, but the people they hired to do the facility study, they also hired to do the design work and to be the general contractors overseeing the construction. So what they did was they created a situation where the hired entity has got a tremendous financial incentive to maximize what the district must do to be a modern 21st century school district. And they get a piece of it every step of the way. They get paid a huge amount of money to come up with the plan. They get paid a huge...
Was it like 30 million?
I don't know. Well,
For design and, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but so the way it works is now that they're doing the design, they're getting paid to do the design, and they're getting paid a percentage to oversee the construction.
Yeah.
So the people who did the facility study in 2021, and by the way, we did a facility study in 2018. We, you know, on the redistricting committee we did our own facility study. And everybody comes up with different numbers because nobody actually, well, the state says, so, okay. So why Green Acres in your ward, right? So a while ago I was channel surfing and I caught the community television history channel. And it was a budget public hearing back when I was a mayor's aide.
Okay.
And the president of the parent-teacher group at Green Acres started off her comments about the 750 kids who are at Green Acres School. They claim that Green Acres is overcrowded now with somewhere north of 400.
What?
Okay. Now, granted, there were some portable classrooms outside of Green Acres, but certainly not enough to hold 300 kids. But what they do now is they say, oh, well, we can only have 18 kids in a classroom in grades 1 through 3. So you create a demand for space. Then they say, oh, well, we can't have kids have, you know, art or music. You can't have the art or music teacher roll into the classroom on a cart like they did when we were kids. So you have to have separate rooms for art and music. And now you have to have a separate room for the computers. Now you have to have a separate room for all of these different things. And suddenly you find yourself overcrowded with 60% of the body that you had 20 years ago. And this is not just Green Acres. This is happening all over the district. How is it, I went to West High School and graduated in 1987 when West High School had 2,400 kids. And after Bob Baines put these enormous additions on the high schools in 2003, how is it the capacity of West High School went from 2,400 to 1,600?
Yeah.
This is what they do in the middle schools and the high schools. They say, oh, every teacher has to have their own classroom. So back in the day, I might have gone to Mrs. Finnegan's class, but Mr. So-and-so, who didn't have his own classroom because there weren't enough classrooms for everybody, right, would teach in that class in that period. So in the high schools, and the same in the middle schools, where every teacher has their own classroom. What's that mean? How many classrooms does a teacher teach? How many classes does a teacher teach in a day?
I don't know, maybe 5?
5. How many periods are there in a day?
8?
8. So do a little math.
Yeah.
If every classroom were used every period of the day, you'd increase your space, you'd increase your number of classrooms by 37.5%. So when you say every teacher has to have their own classroom, so we lock the door and make sure that it's not accessible to students 3 periods of the day,
that's ridiculous.
you automatically wipe out almost 40% of your classroom space. So they do these things that create the demand that they then turn around and say, you must spend more money to fix. And it becomes a grift. And then you got to find out how that all impacts the budget, right? So I don't know what other questions you have. But
I guess my thing is, it really is about how we spend money and how we're utilizing our space.
Well,
that's where I just don't understand. I'm like, why are we doing these additions? Well, first of all,
because in the middle schools they're doing the same thing.
Yes.
Right. But so why is it that Southside, which is the most extreme example, Hillside is admittedly a little tight, but Hillside, like everybody else, is on a downward glide path.
Yeah.
They showed this big jump in middle schools. If you take a look at their budget presentation, well, that's because they finally moved the 5th grade into Hillside and McLaughlin, which had blocked it from happening. Over at Parkside and Southside, where the 5th grades have been there forever, there's no. They manipulate the numbers, and it's a lot to follow through. But the other way they do things, like transportation, right? I'm looking at their budget, and they're saying efficiencies, they're decreasing transportation due to efficiencies, $800,000. You can't find that in the budget. Why can't you find that in the budget? Well, before the school district took transportation in-house, right?
Which they said they were going to do a better job.
They're going to do a better job. They were going to save money. In fact, they spent more money, and we all know what a train wreck the buses have been the last 2 years.
Yes, a lot of complaints.
It's been
with,
unbelievable calamity.
Kids not getting home in a reasonable hour.
But so there used to be 2 transportation line items in the budget. One said transportation, which was general transportation, and the other was special ed transportation. Okay, I forget what they call that. I'd have to look it up. Now, if you take a look, that special ed transportation line item is $11 million, okay? And the regular transportation line item is down to $203,000. Well, how does that happen? Well, it didn't happen. What they did, instead of, now that they're not cutting a check to the MTA, they've eliminated the line item. So do you know what it's costing for transportation? No, not without making a right to know request, because they took the bus drivers and they put them in the salary line item. They took their benefits and they put them in the benefit line item. They took the, they took the gas and oil and all the stuff they have to do to maintain the buses, and they put that into their utilities line items. So there is no clear-cut way, without physically having to go through multiple years of budgets, to see what they're really spending on transportation anymore. And they did that, I think, to bury the fact that it's not saving us any money. Anything they absorb, like the nurses. We used to know exactly what the school nurses cost, because the health department had the nurses. This is the crazy system that we have, right? So the health department has nurses. The school district, because it separated itself as a district, contracts with the city to provide nursing services. So the health department sends the school district a bill, and the school district sends the health department a check. So we created this whole administrative, melee. Back before it was a district, when it was just a department, the nurses went to the nurses, the cops went to the cops, public building services went to public building. The money went directly into those departments, and when it came time to report the expenditures to the state, the departments reported what they spent on the schools, so we knew the cost for the schools. But now we've got this situation where the city gives the school district money for all of the things that it has to pay the city to provide. So the nurses did the same thing, right? Nurses used to be a separate entity. Now the nurses have been absorbed into the Borg. You can't find a nursing line item. because they put the nurses in the salary line item, they put their benefits in the benefits line item, they put their supplies in the supply line item. So we have no idea whether or not it's costing us more now to have the school district run the nurses than it is to have the city run the nurses. We don't know. And the other big change, and this was always unfair to the school board, the city would negotiate with the nurses, and they never included the school board in the negotiations. That was a bad deal for us because they weren't being necessarily responsive to what we had, concerns we had in trying to manage the nurses and their interactions and everything else. So that was kind of a raw deal, but nonetheless, and the city would give the schools, for nurses, transportation, the student resource officers, the cops in the schools, the maintenance, the building, the maintenance, all that. The school budget specifically has money given to it by the city to pay the city back. So if anybody bellyaches about how they have to pay the city for all of these services, well, you do because you're given the money to do it. And by the way, the city owns the buildings. The school district doesn't own the buildings. The school district manages the buildings and is responsible for them, but the city owns them, which is why when they close a building, it goes back to the city to dispose of. So.
And that's what's happening with Wilson. And
Yeah. Well, they'll be lucky if they turn it into elderly housing. The problem with elderly housing is the definition of elderly. Because you can be a junkie in recovery and be considered elderly for MHA purposes, and that building could easily become a flop house.
And that is what's sad. So we're not even protecting the elderly.
No, of course not. It's a
And
horror
this
show.
is which is like unacceptable. I think so many people are not aware of this because when we use certain words and then they change the definition of these words and then there's the loopholes, and it is happening across the country.
It's happened here in Manchester, where all elderly in like the Burns high rise or the Parizeau high rise on the west side, they've been assaulted by some of these disabled or otherwise considered elderly people.
And for me, that needs to be separated out.
Yeah, but
that is just like not okay. So when we say, oh, we're going to do elderly housing, it needs to be actually elderly housing, not.
It won't be.
Well, that's.
But it can't be unless the feds change what they do, and maybe with President Trump in there and the changes that they're making across the board, someone can bring that to their attention.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah, but the other thing that the schools do, which is as dishonest as the day is long, is, for example, they're saying, their tax cap budget, right? They're saying that they can raise $3.5 million under this year's tax cap. Well, that's a lie. You're an alderman. Do you appropriate the statewide property tax?
No.
No. That is levied by the state. Those taxes are paid by local taxpayers, and they're retained by the local school district as part of the overall state aid to education. But when the school district, and I've pointed this out multiple times, when the school district calculates, quote unquote, its share of the tax cap, it doesn't do it on the $100 million that the local property taxpayers pay for them, which would give them this year roughly $3 million. They do it on the $120 million combined city and state property tax allocation. Well, that's an extra $600,000 they say they're entitled to under the cap that they're not, because the property tax cap only applies to what the Board of Mayor and Aldermen controls. It doesn't apply to the state. It does not apply to the statewide property tax. They did that last year. They did that the year before. They did that the year before. I'm not really sure when they started doing that, to be honest with you, but I caught it last year. I think it was last year that I caught it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, that's the wrong number. And I went back to the budget numbers, and sure enough, they added $20 million from the statewide property tax to their tax cap calculation. And so what they're facing now with this $15 million shortfall, and I do this intentionally to mock them because it's a mess of their own making. And the mayor shares responsibility for this because he has completely ignored everything that has been given to him and said publicly about the tax cap. So when you have a school district that is lying about its revenues, okay? Now, you're a businesswoman, if you had money set aside in your business for a specific purpose, say an emergency.
Yeah.
You have an emergency fund? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Financial advisor tells you should always have an emergency fund. So if you took money out of your emergency fund and you brought it and you said that taking money out of your emergency fund was an increase in your operational revenue, and then you increased your spending based on the use of that savings as a revenue, what would happen to your business when the revenue actually didn't show up?
Yeah, well, first of all, it doesn't, yeah, you're upside down.
You're upside down.
Yeah, that's not revenue.
So in the last year of Joyce,
That's savings.
so in the last year of Joyce Craig, they used $3 million.
Yeah.
In the first year of Jay Rouet, they used $9 million. And last year, they actually got the board to approve $4.5 million, but then they took another $3.8 million that was not authorized, they legally cannot use, so a total of $9.3 million. And they've absolutely now eliminated their reserves, so now they can't do it. So now that
Because there's no more savings.
there's no more savings, so there's no more revenue, and a big chunk of this alleged $15 million shortfall comes from the fact that they were lying about their revenues. They've exhausted 4 times they used one-time revenues. Now they've run their reserves dry, and now the tax cap has kicked in to say, yeah, you can't spend as much money. And oh, by the way, if they don't get what they can get under the tax cap, and that's another complicated story, and I know you're almost out of time.
I know, we got to wrap up.
If you can't, then instead of roughly $2 million cut, they're looking at about a $5 million cut.
So, always to learn more, Girard at Large, Thursdays at 7 p.m.
We'll be doing more of this tonight, live
This
at 7.
this is a fire hose. This is a lot, but we need to be transparent and hold all of us accountable. I always say show up to City Hall and the school board, and definitely tune in to Rich Girard. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for the all the knowledge, experience, and everything.
Well,